In boxing, everyone talks about punching power, about chin, about courage. But why do so many strong fighters lose against opponents who seemingly barely hit harder? Why do some boxers seem untouchable, even though they're standing right in front of their opponent? The answer often lies where hardly anyone looks: in footwork. Footwork determines distance, rhythm, and control. But who truly mastered it at the highest level? And who used their feet like a weapon? Let's start with the first name on this list. Top 1. Dimitri Pirog. Dimitri Pirog's footwork was anything but classic. It seemed strange, almost clumsy, but that was exactly where its destructive power lay. Pirog constantly shifted his weight, creating angles that were almost impossible for his opponents to read. While other boxers showed clear movement patterns, he defied every expectation. Particularly striking was his ability to switch stances in the middle of a combination without losing balance. These fluid transitions of shuffles, small side steps, and sudden changes of direction made it nearly impossible to land a clean shot on him. His attacks came from positions where punches weren't normally expected. That's precisely what made him so dangerous. Defenders often stood incorrectly, reacted too late, or swung at air. Pirog used his feet not just for movement, but as a tactical tool to manipulate opponents. His footwork wasn't an end in itself, but the foundation of his entire fighting style. Whoever boxed against him fought not just against fists, but against a constant feeling of uncertainty. How do you defend against something you can't read? Top 2. Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo Rigondeaux embodied a completely different kind of footwork. While some boxers work with a lot of movement, his footwork was minimalistic, precise, and almost invisible. He literally glided through the ring, always half a step out of his opponent's reach. That was precisely where his power to frustrate lay. A single small step was often enough for him to completely redefine distance. Opponents threw punches, but only hit air. His balance was almost perfect. Even under pressure, even on the ropes, Rigondeaux remained stable and calm. With slight turns and subtle pivots, he escaped situations where other boxers would have been trapped. His changes of direction were particularly striking, seemingly predictable, then suddenly gone. This subtle footwork made him extremely difficult to hit, even when he seemed stunned or momentarily under pressure. Rigondeaux used his feet not for spectacle, but for control. He dictated the pace and rhythm of a fight without visibly taking the lead. That's exactly what made him mentally exhausting for many opponents. How do you defeat a boxer you can barely reach? Top 3. Jesse Rodriguez. Although Jesse Rodriguez is still at the beginning of his career, he has already shown that exceptional footwork isn't tied to experience. In a comparatively short time at the highest level, he has demonstrated impressive control over angles, balance, and distance. His movements are clean, efficient, and free of unnecessary steps. This very clarity is what makes his footwork so effective. Rodriguez moves through the ring with an effortlessness usually only seen in experienced elite boxers. Against strong opponents, he always remains stable, places his feet precisely, and manages to seamlessly combine offense and defense. Particularly striking is his ability to reposition immediately after every punch. He rarely stays still, instead continuously changing the angle from which he works. The consistency of his movements is his greatest asset. Every step serves a purpose. Every change of direction opens new opportunities. His footwork seems calm, almost inconspicuous, yet it constantly keeps opponents off balance. Is it this technical maturity that already sets him apart from many others? Top 4. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali's footwork was based on rhythm, lightness, and a unique sense of timing. For a heavyweight, he moved with a speed and elegance that defied physical expectations. Ali practically danced through the ring, bouncing on his toes, constantly in motion. This dynamism allowed him to control fights from a distance and dictate the pace entirely on his own terms. His footwork was not only defensive but an active means of dominance. With small steps, quick backward movements, and lateral evasions, he eluded attacks without losing balance. Particularly iconic was the so-called Ali Shuffle, a seemingly playful element that nevertheless revealed his extraordinary speed and coordination. For opponents, it was not only physically, but also mentally extremely taxing to face a boxer who constantly evaded and could counter at any moment. Ali's footwork made him almost untouchable and shaped his image as much as his fists. How was one supposed to hit a fighter who was always a step ahead? Top 5. Naseem Hamed. Naseem Hamed's footwork was unpredictable, playful, yet astonishingly controlled. At first glance, his style seemed chaotic, almost disrespectful of classic boxing principles. But behind this facade lay exceptional balance and a keen sense of timing. Hamed deliberately slowed the pace of a fight, letting his opponents believe they had gained control, only to abruptly change the rhythm the next moment. He frequently switched stances, moved out of range with small evasive steps, and used his feet to set traps. Opponents attacked, but Hamed was already gone or suddenly at a new angle. These movements opened up spaces for his explosive, often surprising punches. What many interpreted as recklessness was, in truth, calculated chaos. His footwork served not only for safety, but for provocation. He forced opponents to make mistakes, overreact, and lose their structure. Hamed's footwork was the key to his show and his effectiveness simultaneously. Was it precisely this mix of risk and control that made him so unique? Top 6. Oleksandr Usyk. Oleksandr Usyk possesses footwork that is almost unique for his weight class. Especially in cruiserweight, he seemed simply untouchable to many opponents. His feet carry him effortlessly through the ring, always in motion, always ready to change the angle. Usyk combines fluid lateral movements with precise pivots that allow him not only to avoid attacks, but to immediately turn them into his own actions. What makes his footwork so special is its efficiency. He wastes no step. Every shuffle, every turn, serves a clear purpose, control over space and rhythm. Heavier, slower opponents had enormous difficulty even getting him in position. While they were still trying to get set, Usyk had already shifted laterally or completely changed the angle. His ability to circle the ring while simultaneously applying pressure made him a tactical nightmare. He didn't move away to flee, but to dominate. Usyk's footwork was the foundation of his style and the key to his superiority. How do you defeat an opponent who is constantly where you don't expect him? Top 7. Orlando Canizales. Orlando Canizales was a fighter whose footwork thrived on permanent movement and tireless energy. He practically never stood still. Instead, he light-footedly hopped through the ring, constantly changing direction, thereby continuously creating new openings. This constant activity made it extremely difficult for his opponents to find clean timing or build stable attacks. His quick feet allowed him to evade laterally or change the angle with small shuffles in a fraction of a second. Canizales used these movements to confuse opponents and force them into unfavorable positions. As soon as a gap opened, he was immediately ready to punish it with powerful shots. His footwork was not defensively oriented, but aggressively minded. Through this mix of pace, changes of direction, and permanent presence, he controlled the fight without ever letting it become static. Opponents often didn't know from which direction the next attack would come. Canizales proved that constant movement can be just as powerful a tool as raw punching power. How do you react to a boxer who is never where you expect him? These 7 boxers show that true dominance in the ring often starts with the feet. Footwork determines control, safety, and rhythm. If you liked this analysis, then leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments which boxer had the best footwork of all time for you.